Okay, it is right at 6 o'clock, so we'll call the meeting to order. That'll be known, everybody's present. All the board members are here today. We'll need a motion to adopt the agenda as amended. You have an amendment before you with, I believe there's 3 items or 3, got page 2.
Yes, we have a resignation from employment to add, action on the ERC fields, and then question about.
Move to approve the agenda with the addendum.
Motion by Joanne,
I second it.
second by Olivia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. 3.0 is approval of the minutes for December 14th regular meeting and the January 12th special meeting. Any discussion? If not, accept the motion to approve.
So moved.
Motion by Joanne,
Second.
second by David. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. Item 4.0, consideration of bills and warrants. Hoping everyone's had an opportunity to look at those. Any questions? If not, I'll accept the motion to approve them as presented.
So moved.
Motion by Jeff, second by Roger. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. Item 5.0, hearing requests from citizens. Anyone out there? No one there. We'll move to item 6.0, which is a special report. Kyle from Jared Gilmore and Phillips CPA firm is going to give us an audit report. Are you there, Kyle?
I am. Are you ready?
We're ready for you.
Okay. Well, I'm going to walk you through the audit report in front of you and just kind of go through it with you and kind of guide you through and point out some things that I think might be of importance to you. So there's some letters at the front of your packet. And like always, we're going to skip to those at the end of the audit. So we're going to start with page 1 in your blue bound book. And this is the auditor's report. Pages 1 through 3 are the only thing in here, along with a couple other reports towards the end of the audit, that actually belong to us. Everything else in here is your information and your numbers, and we just take it and put it in the format prescribed by the KMAG, as well as add in the additional information for the single audit. So this first paragraph is what we audited, which is the fund summary statement of regulatory basis receipts, expenditures, and uncovered cash balances of USD number 503 for the year ended June 30, 2020. That next paragraph is management's responsibility for the financial statement. That paragraph is just stating that it's management's responsibility to provide us with accurate information, accurate numbers, to attest that all those numbers are correct, as well as to attest that internal controls are in place and things of that nature. Those next 3 paragraphs are our responsibility as auditors. We audit according to the KMAG, the Kansas Municipal Audit and Accounting Guide. That's a little different than GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles, if you've heard that term before, where it's mostly a cash basis of accounting, and we do pull in the caveat of accounts payable, those things that we pay in July and August that maybe we purchased services for back in June or before year end, as well as those funds we've encumbered. So we also audit according to government auditing standards, as well as the uniform guidance due to the school district receiving such a large amount of federal money. With that in mind, those next 2 sections on the bottom of page 1 and that first section on the top of page 2 talk about the adverse opinion on U.S. generally accepted accounting principles. We just have to include these in this report because there would be a material difference if these were GAAP financials versus the KMAG financials. That next paragraph is probably the most important in this audit report, and that's the unmodified opinion on regulatory basis of accounting. And that means that the district received the best opinion they could receive on their financial statements, and that the information presented in this audit is materially accurate representation of what occurred during the year. Those next 3 sections just kind of talk about the supplementary information that we also have to include, and we'll see that at the back of the audit. And it's just saying that, we've got the single audit information in here, as well as the various schedules required by KMAG. It also points out that in those schedules, we do have some information from the prior year audit, not the entire audit, just the prior year information for comparative purposes. So if we skip ahead to pages 4 and 5, this is statement 1. This is what I kind of like to call the meat and potatoes of the audit. It's just a quick summary of kind of what happened within each fund during the year. And that, as you can see, we list the fund on the far left, and then we've got that beginning unencumbered cash balance or a cash carryover. And then we've got that prior year canceled encumbrances. As you can see, those are all zero. And then those next two columns are receipts, that money we brought in, and the expenditures, that money we sent out. And then we get to that ending unencumbered cash balance. For KMAG, there's about a 10-page checklist that we also have to audit for. And then one of those is that each fund ends at a positive cash balance. As you can see, there are a couple funds that do have negative cash balances down on the bottom of page 4, but those are allowed because those are mostly grant funds. We've spent the money and it's a reimbursement basis, so we're still waiting to receive that money back as of year end. And then that next column, we get to those accounts payable item, where we add that to the unencumbered cash balance, and we end up with our ending cash balances on the far right for each fund. And on page 5, you can see that total is what ties to the actual cash in bank. We've got that listed down below. On page 6, we get into the footnotes for the audit. Page 6 through 8, and then just a little bit on page 9, is a pretty cookie cutter footnote that you would see in all school districts that follow KMAG. It just, the first section kind of talks about the district a little bit and gives some general information about the district. And then the rest kind of just focuses on KMAG, some special caveats of it and things of that nature. So I encourage you to read through that and kind of just refresh yourself with it, but I'm not going to go line by line through it with you. And then on page 9, we get to that stewardship, compliance, and accountability, footnote number 2. This is that footnote that deals with that KMAG checklist that I mentioned. As you can see, we talk about those cash balances in that first paragraph, talking about that those are negative. However, we cite the statute that allows that to happen. And then we talk about that as shown in Schedule 1, which we'll see later, we were in compliance with Kansas budget laws. I do want to point out that in that second paragraph, it was just a minor violation. With bonds, you're required to have the payment to the state 20 days prior to the due date. And we had one that was paid within 10 days. So nothing serious or anything like that. It's just a minor regulatory violation that we have to point out. Footnote number 3 is our deposits and investments footnote. Those first 4 paragraphs on page 9 are just kind of general information about various statutes regarding our cash. Things such as our cash has to be in banks that are in the counties we operate or surrounding counties. Our funds have to be secured at year end, and things like that. We can't go investing our money in the stock market because we're holding it for a government municipality, so for the greater good of the community. So we can't put it in risky places like that. On the top of page 10, we actually get into some information pertaining to the district. So as you can see, at the year end, our carrying amount of deposits was a little over $5 million, and the bank balance was $4.9 million. This difference is due to deposits in transit at year end, as well as outstanding checks that hadn't cleared the bank. And then we talk about, of that balance, a little over $400,000 was covered by FDIC insurance coverage, and the remaining $4.5 million was collateralized with securities pledge, showing that we were in compliance with that requirement to have all our funds secured. Footnote number 4 touches on that in-substance receipt in transit. This is one of the special caveats of school districts regarding KMAG is we have to recognize those receipts that we receive in July that are for the prior fiscal year. So as you can see at year end, we had a little over $560,000 of receipts in transit. Footnote number 5 is our capital lease obligation. We've got just one capital lease for the installation of the energy management system. And this just discloses kind of just some general information about it. It shows what our future payments are going to be. And then we talk about the imputed interest on that lease to get that net present value of the lease payments. And then we subtract out the current maturities, and we'll see this on the schedule on the next page to finally get our long-term capital lease obligation. Footnote number 6 is our operating leases. These are for things that we rent, but we don't necessarily own. Ours are the school districts are copiers and a postage machine. So as you can see at year end, we spent a little over $25,000 on those pieces of equipment. And then for the contracts that we signed for those equipments, we project out the future payments. So you can see next year, right now, we have $16,000 worth of contracts that we've agreed to with that copier and postage machine. And then 2022, we have a little under $7,000. Page 11 is the long-term debt schedule. This just breaks down the debt that we have, the bonds and that capital lease, and kind of gives you a table format to put it in. So we start with that beginning balance at year end, and then any additions or new debt, which we do not have any, and then we show the amount paid for the year, a little under $2 million. And then we get our ending balance on the third column, $3.4 million roughly. And then that far right column is the interest we paid during the year. Down below, we project out the future payments. This is really good for budgeting purposes, just to kind of see, when we expect to make payments, if there's a larger payment one year versus the next, balloon payments, things of that nature. And as you can see, we are on our next year, we are last year paying on our bonds. So those will come off of this long-term debt schedule on this bottom part anyway. And then on footnote number 8, the next page is our other long-term obligations from operations. This first part mainly focuses on capers. These first paragraphs on page 12, other than the last one at the very bottom, are just kind of some general information regarding capers and various things that the state regulatory agencies are doing as far as funding capers and things of that nature. It does disclose the percentage for the employer rates for the year. And since we cross calendar years, there are 2 different rates because that's when the rates change. So as you can see, for the first half of the year, for the prior year, it was 14.59% and 13.21%. And then for the current year, it was 16.15% and 14.41%. That last paragraph is information that actually pertains to the district. And as you can see, we paid to capers on behalf of our employees and we received this money from the state, a little under $1.2 million. And then on the next page, page 13, we get to probably the scariest part of this footnote, which is that net pension liability. Since capers is underfunded, we're required to disclose what that amount would be if the state were to quit funding capers. Now, obviously, we don't ever foresee that happening. It's just such a large number that we're just required to disclose that amount. As you can see, it's a little over $12.3 million. The remaining part of this, the next 2 paragraphs, just kind of touch on more general information. And then those bottom 3 paragraphs on page 13 touch on the district's policies for sick and vacation leave and personal leave, things of that nature. I encourage you to kind of read through it and refresh yourself with the policies. But on page 14, if you look in that first paragraph after that bulleted list, with KMAG, we're required to disclose what that estimated amount would be that we'd have to pay our employees for that time that they've earned as of year end, that they get a carryover into the next year. And as you can see, that amount is a little over $55,000. Once again, since this is a KMAG audit, this doesn't show up on our financial statements, but with GAAP financials, you would see this on there. And so that's one of those reasons why we have to issue that adverse opinion on GAAP financials. Footnote number 9 is the risk management footnote. This is a cookie cutter footnote that you see in every district throughout the state. It's just stating that we mitigate our risk through the purchase of insurance. Footnote number 10 is another one that is going to be in almost every school district audit just due to our grants we receive. It's just stating that it's always possible that a grantor could come in and disallow some costs. So there's always the chance that we could have to pay some money back to the grant for grants. Footnote number 11 is our interfund transfers. We've got listed what funds the transfers came from and what funds they went to, as well as the statutory authority for those transfers. And then we've got that total amount for the transfers. So as you can see, there was authority for all transfers we made during the year. And finally, footnote number 12 is our subsequent event footnote. Typically, we don't usually have much in here. This is going to be anything that's happened since year end that we feel like we need to be disclosed in the audit. But with COVID-19, we just kind of have a blanket footnote saying that we can't estimate what the future financial impact could be on schools. So we just disclose that we can't estimate that. And now we get into the supplementary information. Everything behind here is a schedule, and all those financial, that one financial statement we looked at front was a statement. So schedule 1 is that budgetary comparison. And we start with that certified budget that we would have approved, and then we get the adjustments to comply with the legal max. And then we have our next column, which is the adjustments for qualifying budget credits. These are things such as reimbursed expenses, and to get to our total budget number. And then we've got the expenditures charged to each of those funds in that next column. And on the far right column, this is one of the few times where a negative number is a good thing. So as you can see, all our numbers were negative, with the exception of the general fund, which was 44 cents over, and the state allows a $1 variance to not have to be a budget violation. So we're within compliance with all our budget requirements. Schedule 2, these are our individual fund schedules. These tie back to that statement 1. This just gives a more detailed breakdown of kind of what happened in each fund, where our money came from, where our money went, things of that nature. I'm not going to go through each of these schedules with you, but I encourage you to go through it and just kind of review it and, for your purposes, because as you can see, we've got those prior year numbers there as well as the current year. So you can kind of see how those vary from year to year, as well as we've got the budget numbers, and then we've got the variance over or under budget. So this is really good just for your information to kind of go through and look at each fund, see how each line item did compared to the budget, see how we compare to prior years and things of that nature. So now if we go to Schedule 3, which is on page 47 of your audit, these are our agency funds. So these are the funds that the district holds, but they don't necessarily belong to the district. These are things such as our payroll clearing account, health insurance, as well as all our student organizations. So as you can see at year end, we had a little over $160,000 that we are holding on behalf of others. On the following pages, page 48 and 49, we get to Schedule 4, which is our district activity funds. So these are for all our various organizations and date receipts that actually do belong to the school district. And these numbers tie to that statement 1. You'll see 2 lines on there for date receipts and then for school projects. Now we get to page 50, which begins kind of a single audit part of this report. Page 50 is our schedule of expenditures of federal awards. These are going to be all the federal grants that the school district received either direct or through KSDE or other sources. And we're required to disclose this as part of that single audit, since we received and spent more than $750,000. So that first column on the far left is just breaks down what department of the government our money came from, who it passed through to us, and then it talks about what the actual grants were. That next column is our pass-through number. This is just from all the contracts that we have. And then we get that federal CFDA number, and this number is just as a specialized number assigned to each grant just to help signify and split out those dollars. That first column on the far right is the provided as subrecipients, and that is going to be if we would have received a grant and then we passed it on to somebody else, that amount will be reported in this column, and as you can see, we didn't receive any to pass on to anyone else. That next column is going to be our receipts, all that grant money that we received. And then we've got the dispersed, the amount expended. And as you can see, we spent a little over $1.6 million. So we are well over that threshold. And with that being said, our major program, we're required to pick a major program based on the amount spent as well as the amount of each individual grant. And most years we pick the food service or title, and this year food service was our major program, and we'll kind of touch on that later. On page 51, we get into the report on internal control over financial reporting. This is our government auditing standards report. So that first paragraph, once again, just kind of talks about what we're auditing and what we're auditing according to. Those next 3 paragraphs kind of touch on our internal control over financial reporting. It's just kind of mentioning that what we're looking for, which is weaknesses, deficiencies in the way that we process our bank recs, our financial statements, things of that nature. If we would have had any, you would have seen them in this section. And as you can see, we don't have any. I encourage you to kind of read through it and just kind of see what the various levels of those issues are regarding internal control. And then those other next 2 paragraphs are just kind of some general information regarding what the compliance and the other matters as far as the government auditing standards, as well as the purpose of the report. And the purpose of the report is to comply with the single audit requirements. And then we get to pages 53 and 54. And this is our report over the single audit portion, the major programs that we selected. So that first is just kind of talking about what it is, like I mentioned. That next paragraph, management's responsibility, is just to basically say that management's responsibility to be in compliance with all these grants, make sure we're following all the requirements, things of that nature. Those next two paragraphs are our responsibility as the auditor, which is to audit those grants that we select as major programs according to uniform guidance. That bottom paragraph on page 53 is the most important of this report, and that's our opinion on each major federal program. And we issued the unmodified opinion, the best opinion the district can receive, meaning that when we tested the major program, the food service, we didn't find any issues with any meal count numbers, financial reports, anything of that nature. That next section talks about report on internal control over compliance. Once again, this is pretty similar to that section from the report before, other than this is dealing with internal controls over compliance. So if we would have had any issues with the food service program and we were testing things such as people weren't checking numbers to make sure that the reports were matching up, things of that nature, you would have seen disclosed in this section, but we didn't add anything to report. And then finally, we just touch on the purpose of the report. Once again, is to make sure and report what we found on our testing for uniform guidance. On page 55, we get to probably what I should have started with before we get on the reports. The government doesn't like to have to read through those reports and see and search line by line to see what the issues are. They like a concise picture. This presents just a quick summary of what those reports are basically saying. So that first paragraph talks about our opinion on the financial statement, once again mentioning that adverse opinion on GAAP basis and then an unmodified opinion on the regulatory basis of accounting. And then we talk about those internal control over financial reporting report. And once again, as you can see, like that report says, we didn't have any issues to report. And then we get to the federal awards report, that last one we looked at. And once again, there were no issues to report. And then we talk down below about what the opinion on that report was, which was the unmodified opinion. And then if there were any findings, of which we had none. And then we identify what those major programs are. And as you can see, we picked the food service as well as Title I. And finally, we talk about the threshold for distinguishing those Type A and Type B programs, which is $750,000. And this amount's just prescribed based on the total amount of federal awards that the school district receives. And then finally, we get to if the district qualified as a low-risk auditee. And this is always going to be no, because one of the requirements to be a low-risk auditee is that you have to follow a accounting guidance that's required by the state. Well, the KMAG isn't actually required by the state. It's something that we opt into every year, just because it gives a clear picture to our readers of the financial statement of everything that happened during the year. And there's no bearing on being a low risk or high risk auditee. It just changes the amount of testing that we have to do as far as grants are concerned. And then if we would have had any findings or prior findings, you would have seen this on those sections 2 as 3, as well as that next page, page 56. So now we're going to touch on the letter that was at the front of your audit. This first letter of the stapled packet is called the presentation letter. I encourage you to read through it. It's basically just, if we would have had any issues with getting the information from Lori or from Tanya, we would have come to the board orally and said, hey, we're not getting the information we need. Can you help prod them along, help them get the information? We did come to the board orally with any requests of that nature. So as you can see, we didn't have any problems. Tanya and Lori did a great job of providing us the information we need and getting us everything that we need. So I encourage you to kind of read through it and see those various things that we would have approached you regarding issues during the audit. Page 3 of that report is our audit adjustments. We just had one small audit adjustment, and that was just to help us comply with the budget. We just adjusted the amount of a transfer. Finally, that 4th page is our management representation letter. I like to call this the reminder letter. This is good for management to read through every year and kind of refresh themselves of all the various things that we talk about during the audit. It's good for management to go through this, and it kind of reminds them of, oh, did we talk about this during the audit? Is there something out of the ordinary that I should have talked about with the auditor? So it's good for management to refresh themselves every year with it and kind of see those various things that we got to ask, as well as things that the management is attesting to, such as providing accurate financial statements that were in compliance with federal grants, things of that nature. So with that being said, do we have any questions?
Any questions from anyone? Anya, did you have something to say earlier? You need to step up the microphone if you do.
Hey Kyle,
Yeah.
I just wanted to tell the board, because you know how I get sometimes whenever I disagree somewhat. But on that requirement of remitting the bond payment 20 days prior, I just wanted to say that I pay ours by ACH. And so the requirement becomes to notify them within 20 days. And so even though I was paying at the same time I normally do, I did not notify them of the payment. So the payment was not in danger of being late. It was the notification, as opposed to the remittance, which I realize is just a minute little thing.
A formality.
Yes, but zeros and decimal points and certain words
Yeah.
make a difference. But thank you, Kyle.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions? We did accept that.
Do we need to accept the audit report? Is that typically what we do?
You what?
We don't typically, do we typically accept the audit report and vote on it? That would have been in a prior,
Okay.
right?
Kyle, are you still
I
there?
don't think we typically,
Yes.
we
Okay.
don't typically do that.
I think we're done with Kyle though, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Kyle.
Thank you, Kyle.
Yes, thank you. You guys have a good evening.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
You too.
I think it's just the report that they let us know. Because I don't think that we can agree or disagree
Right.
after this point,
Okay, thank you, Tanya.
even though I just did, right?
Okay, we're ready for
Thank you.
7.0, report of the superintendent of schools.
All right, well, the first thing on the list for my report is special recognition. It is Board Member Appreciation Month, this month in January for board members across the state, and especially you. So at each of your spots, you will find a cup. It's got a Viking head on it, tells you, hard work pays off, go Vikes. And I would suspect after the year it's been on the board, that you might like to put some beverage in that when you get home. So I want you to know that I appreciate the work that you've done, the hours it takes to go through and to read all the material and to ask the questions and to do what's right and make those decisions that are hard to make, that don't please everyone. But we appreciate you doing what's right for Parsons kids. So, thank you. All right, COVID-19 update. So, we're getting ready for second semester to start tomorrow. And so, as a part of that plan, we are going to have, at the elementary level, they'll all be face-to-face, with the exception of those that have a medical issue, and so they'll give you those numbers. Middle school and high school, they met the criteria or had a medical issue, they would as well. So our quarantine numbers are still at 60 right now. But once, our middle school, high school kids get back in face-to-face learning, those numbers might look a little different. As of today, our active COVID cases, we had 2 students district-wide and 2 staff members. So vaccine update, Amber's done a great job of getting all of that information out and those signed consent forms. We found out today that our group should be getting the first vaccine on February the 5th. So we are looking forward to that as well, for sure. Right now, there were 208 that had signed up for the first round, had selected to take that vaccine. So something else our kids have done in grades 4 through 12 is they've done a Google form where when they check in during Viking time, it's just a little self-assessment. How do I feel? Do I have any of these symptoms? When someone takes their temperature, and we accumulated, a lot of responses. And then with the health aides in each building, it's been very helpful because they've been able to go around and visit with kids that have, marked they had 2 or more symptoms or didn't feel well. And now there's another tool that we're going to be able to use. So I put one of these at each of your spots. at each of your little things, desks, spots, looks like this. And it's a scratch and sniff card. So this is something that we're gonna be able to use. All of our health offices will have these available for staff and for students to use if they have some other symptoms. So what you do is you scratch the card, and you gotta scratch it like you mean it. Now, it's not like you're gonna win $1 million, nothing comes off, but you scratch it. And then when you sniff it, it's gonna smell like one of those 6 things at the bottom. So I would encourage you to scratch it, see if you can smell it. And the thing is, one of them is unscented. I tried not to put that at anyone's spot. When I first did, I gave Rob one and it was unscented. And he really couldn't smell it and it made him a little nervous. So you can smell it. Whew. It's gonna be one of those 6 scents and we can turn it over, and mine definitely smelled like popcorn. So it's just another way to help screen for possible COVID. So that's something else that we're gonna use. The other thing we've done, first 9 weeks, we had a Google form that Amber and I did. And anytime someone was in quarantine or tested positive, we put the information in. And I pretty much was able to keep up with it first 9 weeks. It's pretty easy. Second 9 weeks, oh my. It was, just a lot more. So we're gonna continue to have that. But this third quarter, the health aide in each of the buildings will be keeping track just for that specific building. So it'll be easier to look at that data and make sure it's accurate and up to date. So those are
You
the
get a shot through Labette Health, a vaccination, there's a small form that you fill out, and it checks with you every single day until you get your second shot. So it's kind of redundant, but you'll automatically fill that form out when you get your shot. I filled mine out every day. I had my shot last week.
And so then it just comes in your email every day?
Every day.
That's a good idea. Okay,
It's real simple, takes 1 minute.
1 minute. So I just took another screener.
So Lori, on these, faculty, kids, everybody, if they think they might
Right.
have COVID.
If they have other symptoms or they're not feeling well, or, they're in the health offices, and it's just one additional way to help screen for possible COVID. So we thought it was something good. We don't have the capacity to do the on-site testing with the little nasal swab that then they put in the magic juice. It's about the size of a credit card. Simply because of all the reporting that's required for that. But this doesn't require any reporting, and it's just an extra little strategy that's pretty easy, and it's not upsetting to a student or
Right.
to an adult, not invasive at all. So, okay, any other questions there? KISA update, that is our accreditation system. We finished year 3 last year. So that system update was included in your view on Friday. And so this would be year 4, and we are going to pause. The majority of schools across the state are going to pause, which means we're not going to have a visit during year 4, and we're not going to complete a system yearly update. However, there still are questions about social emotional learning and academic learning that we will be responsible for answering and turning in April. So, and that means year 4 will officially be 21-22 next year, and then year 5, our year for accreditation, will be in the spring of 2023. Okay. Next is the ESSER update. So the CARES money, the first round, we had, it was considered ESSER's fund, which is the elementary, secondary safety. Now they're ready for round 2, and it's about 4 times the amount that we received in round 1. It's based on the federal funding formula with your title program. So that's what it's based on, is your poverty and those title numbers and that formula. So our estimate is $1,932,129. So the application for that is not out yet. Should be available in February. It'll be short, it won't be very long. We should begin and be able to draw down that money in March. Now, we have until September 2023 to spend all of that money, okay? And with the first round of ESSER funds or CARE money, they gave us a list of 12 different things, categories and ways you could spend it. Now, this round, they've given us 15. And, you know, there's that huge navigating change document that KSDE has that they've put out on their website. They're adding something to it called Navigating Next. And what that's going to do is give us some guidance about how strategies and ideas for how that money could be spent. Okay? So that was good news. Someone last month had asked for an update on the assistant superintendent search. And so I just printed out my little calendar. I called KASB and visited with Sue Gibbons. He kind of said, you know, do you have some ideas or a general way in which you've done this before? And so this is what we've got. Right now, we have currently 4, is that right, applications? Yes, 4 completed applications on file. There are others that have called, but only 4 have turned everything in completed. We don't have any incomplete files either. They've turned it all in or they haven't turned in anything. So applications closed February the 12th. And then on the 16th, Linda and I would look through those applications and then we'll start to do reference checks and Amanda will contact and schedule some interviews. Then we'll get resumes out to the core interview team. We'll conduct those interviews and then we'll do tours and then have some meeting feedback there as well. And each of those interviews, I don't know how many people will interview, but a schedule might be at 8 o'clock they interview, at 9 o'clock they tour, at 11 o'clock they meet key personnel, at 11:30 they have an exit meeting, and then at noon the next one starts. So we could get 2 of those a day. I'd really like to be able to offer a contract by March the 1st. That would require a special board meeting so that we could make that recommendation and then get all of those things done by March the 8th. Now, typically when we do administrator interviews, we've had a board member on that team. When the superintendent interviewed, the group was there. At KASB, when I visited today, that's not typical or common practice. So that would be, I've got the business person, tech person, a high school principal, an elementary principal, instructional coaches at the middle school and elementary level listed as well.
Well, hold on,
But we could, I'm sorry, go ahead.
hold on. In the past, I've been on quite a few teams that interview administrators, including superintendents.
Well, yeah,
And I would suggest personally that we have a few board members on the hiring team.
And I think that's something, if the board would like to do that, the board president could assign, 1 or 2 people to do that. So
Well, but can we discuss this team? Because I've got some qualms about
Sure.
what we have there.
This was just a typical, what they do is they have someone who can talk about the technology and the business, the administration part, some of the curriculum and the teaching and the learning, so. And then that personnel reception, that's where the P&EA president would be there, all the building administrators, all the directors, board members. I guess we could probably schedule it where you come to some and then you leave so that we don't have a quorum, we don't have too many. But if you'd like to add a board member to that core interview team, that's fine with me. This was just what was practice at KASB.
Would you read again? Who else?
For the interview team, typically they have the superintendent, the director of business, director of technology.
Is it there?
It was in the handout we got.
Oh, yeah.
It was at the-
Okay, yeah. I'm sorry, you don't have to, Lori, it's right there,
Okay,
yeah.
it's all right. And then, so,
Personally, I'd like to see 2 board members, at least 2 board members on that team.
I think we got too many directors on there. I mean, I don't,
we have 2.
but I mean, I don't know why we need 2.
Well, I think they're supposed to do very different things and have different, but it's just the recommendation of KSB, and with technology and business is very different, so. But I'm open to,
I'm like you, Lou. I think that needs to be, but in executive session. Can we talk about this in executive session? personnel people on there?
Means we have a person's name we'll be talking to
Right.
about, yes.
Yes, that's why
Okay.
I
So
put
we,
people's names.
we cannot talk about, we have to decide right now or later on openly if we're gonna have board members.
Right, but,
That's not discussable in executive session.
No, I understand that.
But for the people on it, it
that's why I put their names,
Yeah.
because then it could be discussed.
could be discussed in executive session. And when we come out, we can decide then who we're going to put on the team.
I mean, to me, it seems kind of loaded administratively, and, there's no teachers, no board members, we're the one that's got to take the,
Yeah, on the interview team, what they had added was instructional coaches, and so we had an instructional coach at each level, but. And then when we did the personnel reception, which would just be about 30 minutes or so, then we would definitely have teachers and classified folks.
but these people have really no say, correct? This key personnel reception?
Right, it's just an opportunity to meet.
Yeah, so they have no say in what they think. Correct? I mean, really.
Correct. They could share their thoughts or inputs, we could.
I just see it's kind of loaded, kind of administrative wise to me.
Well, I mean, this is a district level administrative position that's gonna have to work directly with administrators and other directors, so.
I agree, but there's a lot of teachers underneath that they've got to work with and be out in there, and
That's why I wanted to make sure we included instructional coaches in there, because they also work closely in the buildings, but since we do have names just written there, we can discuss that in executive session.
Roger, what would, you're talking about having some teachers on there. Would you recommend one from each building or?
well, I don't want to get it too loaded, but
Right,
I just
you do.
remember in a previous thing without going over, it was loaded to one way. Another, person that was hired, a few years ago, and when we redid it, it changed, but I think at least teachers, I don't know, couple, but I think some board members need to be on there, because we're the ones that's gonna take the fire, no matter what. I mean, we're the ones that see it. I mean, I can understand these directors being on there. They may have to work with
They'll
them,
have to work directly with them.
but, well, go ahead.
And the instructional coaches would report directly to this person as a part of their curriculum type of work, so.
Okay.
I just don't think we need two directors on there, I think we're
Okay.
just limited to one, but I think there needs to be some board members on there.
What the rest of you think?
Does anybody want to volunteer? We do have to have input. I would say a volunteer, 2 volunteers would be okay.
So
Okay, then.
Okay, 2 BOE to be appointed later.
I think as long as the instructional coaches are viewed as representing teachers,
That was mine.
you get more than about 7 to 9 people on a core interview team, it's just way too many. And so if you start adding more teachers, I think that's going to be a problem, just from an interview perspective.
Right. If we add 2 board members, that makes 9
Yeah.
on the interview team. So this right here, the original core team was 7.
I wouldn't want to see it get any more than 9, actually. That's just, interview team can't be effective if it's a hordes of people.
I would agree.
I agree.
Which-
9's plenty.
Because the reality is, once you look at someone's resume, and once you hear them talk and answer questions for an hour, you're going to know everything you need to know. It's not that complex of a process, really. I mean, on all the interviews I've served on, by the time I read someone's files, their resume, and listen to them for about a half hour, my mind's made up.
I've interviewed a lot of people, and I agree with you, Jeff.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, it's just It's obvious.
Maybe we could have some input on the screening on February the 16th. Would there be a reason that a board member could do that?
Well, typically,
Sit in
that's
on
something
that?
that the superintendent does with.
Yeah, I mean, our job is to hire and fire a superintendent.
Superintendent,
The
and that's it.
superintendent's job is to work on the assistant superintendent.
Right.
I mean, that's pretty standard.
We haven't had an assistant superintendent.
Yeah, we haven't hired an assistant
Years.
superintendent for a while.
Since I've been
so-
on
We
the
haven't.
board. We haven't.
Okay, we'll talk about people on it in the executive session.
This is just a suggestion, right?
Someone had asked what the plan was, or what my plan was, what I was thinking in regard to, they wanted an update. I don't remember who asked for that. So this was kind of an update so that everyone would know. After visiting with KASB and getting some information from them, here was the timeline that I put out so that we could get the very best candidate available as soon as possible. And that still leaves, it was posted January the 15th, this job was, and so leaving it open until February the 12th gave us a good solid, 4 or 5 weeks for those that were interested, so.
Anything else on this right now?
No?
Okay, moving forward.
Okay, and so then on the report, there on February the 10th, that's something we're going to talk about later in regard to using some time for PD and calendars differently. February 15th is President's Day. School is not in session that day. The district office is closed. That would be our regularly scheduled board meeting for February. So similar to this month, it will be pushed. Our next regular board meeting will be on February the 16th on that Tuesday.
Lori, any questions? Lori? Moving on to 8.0, report of the Tri-County Board. Couple of pretty significant action items this time, or not action, that's the action item things we're looking at. We're having some problems with four county and services they're providing. And so we're looking to move in some of those services to the community health center. And that will be taking place over the next 2 or 3 months, more than likely, as we work out an MOU and some other items with them. Just that Fort County just doesn't seem to be providing the personnel that we'd like to see provided and the work that we'd like to see them do with our students. Emily has begun to have a Tri-County leadership panel of about 8 or 10 teachers who she can bring together and use a sounding board for items that she wants to use, and she has identified those folks. And then we did approve a cost agreement with a speech language professionals beginning in the fall of 2023, when that person will have completed her undergraduate work and begin her work as a graduate student. Then we will pay her expenses, her salary, her tuitions, expenses, and for every quarter, every semester that she works for us, she gives us, I believe it's 2 years. Or one year per semester. And so we get about 3 years out of the individual, 3 to 4 years out of an individual. So that's putting us in good shape with speech language people down the road. And we have one lined up now every year through 2023. That's begin the process. We're going to be in good shape there. That was pretty much it. 9.0, any questions, Ollie? Thank you. 9.0, reports from our administrators. So you have the high school report there. They're at basketball tonight and basketball this week, wrestling. I think that's all we have from them. At the middle school, I believe we have a report.
They've got basketball.
They got basketball as well. So we'll get to our elementary people, and I think that I saw at least one out there a little bit ago. Are they all there? Come on in, folks.
So for Lincoln, today during our professional development, we met as a group to talk about our second semester plans. We talked together as a team, and then we broke up into grade level teams. And then they broke up into individuals in the afternoon so they could work on their individual class plans. Some of the things that we talked about were that we had some kids that had doctor's notes. So we had 4 kids that will still be remote, 1 pre-K-er, 1 kindergartner, and 2 first grades, which were 2 families, 2 different families. And then we talked about kids that were going on quarantine and what they were expected. Then when the teachers went back, we talked about the social distancing between the chairs. Some of the teachers wanted to try pods, which means, you put some of the kids together and then have the pods 6 foot apart. So when you quarantine, you would only be quarantining that group instead of all the people around them. So that's what we did. Kansas Day is going to be January 29th, and we're going to make our little cookies. Opa is going to make sugar cookies with yellow frosting, and the kids are going to get their little Hershey's Kisses to put in the middle. So we're going to do that. Some of the classrooms are going to be doing activities. Picture Day for Lincoln had to be moved to February 11th. So that's when our picture day is going to be. Interstate said that they are not going to be able to do class photos this year, so it'll just be individual pictures. We're getting ready to Dibble test this week. We're testing middle of the year benchmarking, middle of the year math assessments, and also we're testing each kid on their reading levels. So we're going to see where they came in and where they are now. So that'll be fun to see. We've had 4 students enroll since Christmas break. We had 1 pre-K-er, 2 kindergartners, and 1 first grader. And we are now accepting the pre-K applications for the 21-22 school year. So if you have a 3-year-old or 4-year-old, come by and get an application or fill it out, and we'll get you on the list.
Thank you. Any questions for Shelley? Thank you.
Good evening.
Hi.
Today, the teachers at Garfield worked in grade level teams to make adjustments to their pacing guides for second semester. I met one-on-one with some of the teachers to go over their virtual map data walls, and will continue meeting one-on-one with the rest of the teachers for the rest of the week. Teachers worked to get things ready for second semester and making room in their classrooms for remote students who are now coming back, and remeasuring and making sure the kids are still 6 feet apart. All of the students have now been map tested for winter, and the data is showing scores to be lower than they would normally be at this time of year. Our interventionists stay very busy, as well as every available aide in the building, doing interventions with students who need more support. We are happy to be getting our remote learners back. We started with 14, and we now will only have 5 or 6. The building leadership team meets regularly and keeps a close eye on the academic needs of our students. We are assisting teachers to get maximum academic growth using evidence-based strategies. As part of our school improvement plan, we are re-implementing student data notebooks and focusing our instruction on simplified learning targets in the place of wordy objectives and standards. In the past, we have used a data wall in our title room, but now we have virtual data walls. Each teacher graphs where their students' math and reading scores are, as well as all of our wraparound and social emotional services, so we can get a good bird's eye view of any students who still may need more support. Our instructional coaches were notified that our Parsons Public Library had hundreds of discarded books that they wanted to pass our direction. And so they went up there, picked them up, and they've dispersed these into our classrooms. And this is a big blessing, especially for the amount of first-year teachers we have in our building that could use that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Misty? Thank you, Misty.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Had a really good day today, but before we start about what's going on at Guthridge, I want to thank you guys for your service. I know, what do they say, easy times make for easy decisions and tough times make for tough decisions, and anybody can lead or make decisions when times aren't tough. And so no better time than to realize how much you guys are doing to help our kids, and understanding that we might all have different opinions, we all come together on what's best for our kids, and we figure out the best way to make our schools the best they can be. So thank you for your service, because it's, I don't know if you guys get paid very much for this, do you? But we had a good professional development day today at Guthridge. We started with something Ms. Ray had given us beginning of the year, kind of an outlook at how we're going to attack COVID, and also had a little, is it Hein? Who's?
Chaim and Ganot.
Yeah, his
I determined
understanding, begin with the end in mind. So we started the day looking back, or how we started with COVID. We re-looked at what went well, maybe some areas we overreacted or some places we weren't. And then we kind of brainstormed about things that we were going to do starting the second semester. And we landed on some things that I've said every month. I'm amazed how good a job our kids are doing wearing their masks. I'm heartwarmed that no parents are calling and complaining about masks. Parents are supportive of the fact. I mean, some of them are upset that we're keeping them outside till 8 o'clock, but if it's raining or it's cold, we'll bring them in. But for the most part, this community supported us, and we're happy about that. We landed on some things in our building that we really like that will probably carry forward once COVID is a thing of the past. But the structure and the planning that elementary teachers do really has led to a good start to the school year. We finished our map testing just like Ms. Russell had said. We compared our data today from whether third graders last winter or fourth graders for us last winter. And just like she said, our scores are lower than we had hoped. But the thing that was encouraging to me was this year we decided we would not have as structured a math intervention time just because it's so difficult with pulling kids out. So our math interventions changed, and our reading and language arts scores stayed where they were, and we used our reading and language arts interventions, but we didn't do math consistently like we had in the past. And there's going to be some other contributing factors, but I think it kind of waves the banner for our interventions, because our math scores in the fourth grade dropped a few points, more than we'd hoped, but we're not doing all those little things that we do for math. So one of our reactions to that, Michelle and I, we visited, and we're going to target some kids that are, we can get a bigger bang for our buck. We have a lot of supports for our lower kids, and we have some things for our upper kids, but that middle group, we're going to try to best use our time and try to set up some pull-out spots in the afternoon for 1 or 2 students per class. So I sent an email to our teachers, target those kids in that 40th to 60th percentile that we could maybe move up to grade level or keep them from falling down, and try to have some really Monday through Thursday, 25-minute, one-on-one, one-on-two with our support staff to try to, I call it make the headlines. That's how you go from good to great. If you can just move those really ones that seem to, hey, did you meet expectations on the state assessment? So that's where we're at. Our goal setting with our map data was nice. We're going to try to find a way to recognize some of those kids that write their own personal goals. And if they meet those goals, we're going to get them a hard work pays off t-shirt. So some motivation for those students. And then we spent a lot of time looking at our Kansas Star indicators. As a leadership team, we were working on that, but I missed a couple days in November for being quarantined. We've had support staff, and our leadership team meets twice a month in the afternoon, but we cover with support staff. So we hadn't met in November, and we only met once in December. So we took an hour and a half today to kind of focus on everyone's jobs, and Miss Ray came in when that was happening so we could report back of the progress we made. Because a lot of times we do things, but if you don't record it, you're not going to have proof of it. So we were able to kind of refocus ourselves on that situation. And we shared some things like on our walkthrough data. We do a walkthrough tool. 48% of the time we're in whole group instruction. 21% of the time we're in one-on-one. 17% of the time we're in small group. And, Ted Hill used to always tell us when we were teachers, don't outwork your students. So if I'm doing all the talking and the kids are there, we learn by doing. So we tried to emphasize if my data says that half the time we're in whole group instruction, and it should be me do we do, you do, we probably need to look at our instruction time and try to get more of the students working. So that's the value of things like the walkthroughs, and we tried to work on that today. Almost 90% of the time we have a posted objective, that should be 100%, no matter what. We've spent a lot of time talking about the impact it has for a posted objective, so we're able to say, this is a non-negotiable. We got to make sure that kids know what the learning target is for that day. So that's what we did today. We had a really positive day. I think we're all ready to get back. We have at least 2 and maybe 3 students that will continue to be remote because they have medical issues. We had a few more make some requests to do that, but they really didn't have a medical condition, so some hard conversations with some parents, but they all left understanding that it's best for the kids to be in our building. And then this Friday, we have our second award Zoom activity. So the first one was pretty good. We just sent a Zoom out. The teachers took my link and sent it to the parents, and we got on and we bounced around, and that might be something, if you're on a Friday morning, instead of having to come here for an award ceremony, if you can just click your Zoom and get in and out in 35 minutes, it's less impactful on a student parent's day. So trying to find the best of the bad situations. But we're off to a start tomorrow, and thank you for your time.
Send your link to the board, would you? Because I love.
This is my smirk face, because I would gladly do it if I was had to learn how to do it. My technology skills aren't very good, but I'll figure it out.
I'd love to watch.
I'll send it to you.
I appreciate it.
So this pandemic has exposed some sins in the system. And from what you just told us, it sounds like you're honing in on and prioritizing what students really need to know, correct?
Yeah, I think we're always trying to prioritize what kids need to know, but what I was trying to say was we are going to try to, because we can't take 8 kids out of each class for math interventions as we've done in the past, we're going to try to target maybe the middle. I told them 4 kids in your class. That's the most we can find. And it won't be probably the top 8 or 10, and it might not be the bottom 8 or 10. It's going to be those ones that we can maybe go from a 2 on a state assessment to a 3, which is, or from, if we're measuring our MAP goals, like right now in math, our 4th grade came in and they dropped about, if I remember, we're like 44% at grade level for 4th grade now, and I think they came in at 50. That's a pretty substantial drop, but at the end of the day, it's probably only about 4 kids, because, if you take that kid from, if you have 20 kids in your class and 10 make it and 10 don't, that's 50%, but if you miss 2 of them, now you're down to 40%. So we're gonna try to get 6 to 8 to 10 to 12 of our kids, and if we're 60 to 80% successful on those kids, our percent at grade level goes from 40 to maybe 55 or 52 or 60, something that we feel better about. So
It's no different than coaching. You figure out, how do I get this team together so I could win and they could win and be part of the team?
And if we're feeling better about ourselves, if our kids, feel better, wow, we're at 60% meet goals instead of 40%, we just feel better as a principal, as a staff, as the kids. So that's exactly right. We're just going to try to maximize the things we have to get the biggest bang for our buck. So,
Very good. That's good.
hopefully we'll be able to stand here and I don't think we'll do it much in the 4th quarter. It's kind of almost stealing it's assessments are coming. This is the time we can make some movement.
Yeah.
So that's our goal.
And at the elementary and secondary both, they've already been talking about programs or different ways to do a summer school, more targeted, the elementary with, specific students and specific interventions and those kinds of things. And we would be able to use those ESSER 2 funds to pay for that. So our literacy coaches have already been talking to teachers and admin and.
I really like the idea of, much like when you sign up for an activity for the rec center, instead of an all-day thing, it's going to be, these 4 are coming from 8 to 9, Monday through Thursday or whatever, and we try to have 3 to 4 kids with a teacher and really
Hone in on those.
hone in on a math skill or English language arts skill, and then bring in the next group. So that's,
And they've sent me something from the middle school today. Their leadership team is looking at different ways for credit recovery for students at the middle school to make up things that they've missed and to learn and to work on. So that'll be something that the groups will be bringing to the board in the next month or so.
Thank you. Anything else for Kurt?
No.
Good work.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Just adding to that, I mean, that'll be a priority with that money, I think,
Yes,
to,
absolutely.
work on recovering the money.
Yes, and we'll need to develop a plan for those funds. Once the application is through, we know exactly how much, there is, and then within those 15 priorities. But the remediation of student learning absolutely is at the top of that list.
Okay, moving to new business 10.0, and with your permission, I will conduct 10.0, and then if you would like, we can take a short recess, and the new president and I can trade places, and let the new president continue on from 10.1 on. So with that in mind, 10.0, we're going to elect a president. I need a nomination, please.
I'm going to nominate Jeff Quirin for president.
I so second.
Motion by Lou, second by Roger for Jeff. Jeff, will you accept if elected?
Yes.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Congratulations, Mr. Quirin. Election for first vice president.
Nominate Lou Martino for first vice president.
Motion by Jeff to elect Lou as first vice president. Do you have a
Second it.
Is that Olivia? Second by Olivia. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Carries 7-0. Election of second vice president. Going once? Going twice?
Mike, you want it?
That's an easy spot.
I make a nomination for Mr. Castle for second vice president.
Second?
Motion by David, second by Joanne, to elect Mike Castle, second vice president. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, carries 7-0. Appoint representative and alternates to the Tri-County Special Education Board. If nobody wants it, I'll continue to do it, but if somebody else wants it, well, I'll jump right up.
It's all yours.
I nominate Mike Castle as the representative for the board, and then all other board members as alternates.
Motion by Jeff, second was by David. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
There's 7-0. Let's take about 2 minutes to change places. If you need, do you need more than that?
A restroom break, probably.
Let's come back at 7, can we do it in 5 minutes? 7:12.
15?
15.
Olivia needs
Is that not the one?
Okay,
7:15.
7:15, okay. We're in recess till 7:15.
Okay, after a brief recess, we are back in session. And before we move on to item 10.1, I would like to say that it's my hope as board president for this coming year that we kind of come together as a board, become a little more, let me change that, strike that, become a little less dysfunctional. So as this board, we've been dysfunctional at times, it appears to me, and kind of argued amongst ourselves. And, several of us have lost our tempers and kind of said things in hostile ways. And so it's my hope, myself included, because I'm one of those people, admittedly, that we kind of remain calm in board meetings and conduct our business and try to, not that we've made decisions that aren't in the best interest of our district, but hopefully we can have more civil board meetings at times when they've got a little less civil. So that's my hope. So we'll see how that works out. Item 10.1, action to accept donations to schools. Go ahead and move to that action item.
All right, that's on page 37 in your packet. So these were the donations received to the school district in December of 2020 at Garfield. Presbyterian Church made a donation for $586. St. Vincent's made a donation with gift cards for 4 different families valued at $400 for a total of $986. At Lincoln, the Parsons Public Library donated $20 worth of crafts for students. The Presbyterian Church donated some shoes, items for students at $250. There was an anonymous donation of some crocheted gifts valued at $75 for a total of $345 at Lincoln. At the high school, Henry and Martha Gatewood made a donation to the Honor Flight for $25. In memory of John Key, PHS Honor Flight, a donation was made for $150, and Forbes Hoffman Funeral Home made a donation to Honor Flight valued at $100 for a total of $275 at Parsons High School. That's a total school district donations for the month of December, $1,606.
Okay, I'd entertain a motion to accept those donations as read.
So moved.
Moved by Mike, seconded by Joanne. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Passes 7-0. 10.2, action on high school 21-22 course description book.
So the first reading of that description book was December the 14th, and there were some corrections and changes that were asked to be made. So it was revised and included in the December 18th view. So I haven't had anyone with any questions or anything about that, but December 18th was quite a while ago. So.
Okay, we do need a motion to accept that or adopt that course description book.
Move that we adopt the course description book for 2021-22.
Okay,
Second.
motion made by Joanne,
Second.
second by David. Any discussion on that? Okay, hearing none, seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the course description book, high school 21-22, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay, 7-0 pass. At 10.3, action on CASB recommended policy updates.
Okay, so these were the recommended policy updates that were also in that December 18th view. So they were attached. I haven't had any questions, but if anyone has any.
Okay, we need, go ahead.
The policies that I see, looks like a lot of them address the pandemic, the way they've changed the wording in communicable diseases, and some of the authority that the superintendent has in having kids come back into school, may require a written statement, and also included the local health officer as part of the team. And there was something interesting regarding gang intimidation, which was revised because it was too broad and targeted certain racial and ethnic groups. I found that kind of interesting that KSB found that and changed that. So I give them a pat on the back for that. But this is pretty good stuff. So you need a motion?
Yeah, need a motion, Lou.
So I'll move to accept that.
Okay, motion on the floor.
I'll second it.
second by Olivia to adopt the recommended policy updates. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, 7-0. 10-4, discussion and possible action on a facilities plan.
Okay, so it seems like we've been working on this for quite a while. Facilities plan. Do you spell?
3 years.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, and we started it, I think, was it last year? Maybe it was the year before. So we've done all the walkthroughs. David and Roger were on that committee for the board. They were on that team, as well as James, Linda, and I. So we did walkthroughs of all of the buildings. Then we had a company come with architects and engineers. They reviewed all of our walkthroughs. We made a list. Our team made a list of all the things that we felt like were immediate, short-term, long-term needs, things to put on a rotation. And then we took all those immediate needs and we got budget numbers. And DCS helped us do that. And once we realized what all of the immediate needs cost, we realized, oh, they cannot all be immediate needs. And so we had to kind of prioritize. So our group, in your board packet this last week was this sheet. It talked about the planning, kind of how we did that. The budget page is back behind there. And then there are all of the facility review sheets color coded. So I don't know if there's, David, Roger, you want to talk about things that we found?
Oh, I know that is James here?
James is not here.
Oh, James,
He's-
okay,
no.
he had that. but
Yes, he's got.
I know a couple of items. We looked on some windows and hopefully to get them local out of a place at Fort Scott. We went through this. The only thing that I see that is not on the top issue, and it's because we don't have a number, is the high school finish room.
Right, and that was in that packet
Right.
when we talked about it, and it was estimated at 65,000 because we were gonna have to look at possibly some kind of an addition. So
Right.
I had in my notes that we had marked that to something that was green, which meant we would need to do more work to determine what we needed to do. I know he'd looked at one of those paint booths. You went over and looked.
Yeah, we went to Frontenac, and what some schools do are just painting out in the open. But I tell you, people, it's illegal. You can't do it. But, you're not supposed to do it. It says, whatever. Anyway, so we went to Frontenac, and they probably had the finest system of a 6 through 12 program, but they had a regular paint booth you could go into, and we talked to him. Matter of fact, it was a former student of ours, Eric Goody, is the teacher over there, and his recommendation was theirs was just built out in the room, no cover. You go in there and spray, do all this and that, but if somebody's sanding, doing whatever other projects that they're stored in there, and there's no room to store them, so you have to take them to another room. He said you actually need a larger room, put a door across it, and he said then it would be good. And hopefully James has kind of talked with Mazzarell, and I don't think Ferguson, we're not going to do cars. I don't think that's going to do, but in the weld shop teacher also would be big enough so they could use it, but could be off by themselves. So this is going to be maybe up to 75, 85,000, who knows? But it'll be a separate room, all approved by OSHA, big enough so if kids want to do it, they can go in there and they'll be separate from the others and it'll be safe. He said they had a fire in theirs over there. They had a problem. It's just because there's no room in the way our wood shop is to put easily a paint booth, because you need to put a screen or a door in front of it. You'll take up too much of the room. There's not enough hardly room if you've been in there. There's equipment everywhere. There's just not enough room.
So are we talking about an addition or just an internal reconfiguration within the building?
No, there's no room for internal. We went over there with Mazzarell, and he says, well, you're going to take out this machine then, and you're going to take out this. And I think the thought is to go back behind, where that dust collector was, move it out, and there's a slab out there.
So you're talking about to the north of the building or the east?
No,
or
to the south.
To To the south, okay.
to the south, where those two trailers did set, back out toward there. Now there's just one of the storage to go out to there, because there's water out there. We can get electricity there. It comes from the main, it don't take a lot, but it would be a safety issue, and it's all filtered. There's filters all around the front of it, so it sucks the fumes out. So there wouldn't be any students whatsoever.
What's a student impact? What kind of students do we have that would be utilizing this? Do we know what our numbers are?
Well, we have, he has 3 classes here, correct? He has my grandson's in one, a construction class.
He has 3 classes. Some of those are nested, so he may have construction 2 and construction 3.
Right.
Students at the same time.
Probably somewhere 40.
Probably. I would have to check to see.
Another slight problem he has over there is his classroom is only big enough technically for what, 8, 9 kids? And sometimes he has 15 kids,
That's what they do. So
You
it's
know.
Directing out in the general.
as far as student classroom I'm talking about. But that could be solved. That's not here or there.
So we felt like when we went back through and looked, once we got budget costs, we realized all of our immediate needs, what we felt like were immediate needs, we needed to prioritize. And so each of those places, we were able to go through, and anything highlighted in yellow at the buildings were things that James felt like he could do. They could take care of it locally, with contractors that we have. Those could be, general fund type things. Part of the ESSER 2 money, one of the ways that could be spent in that list of 15 was for ventilation or for other facility upgrades in regard to ventilation, and whether that be air return, air purifiers, and so that does include windows. And we do have buildings that have windows that won't open, that can't open, or if they do open, then we can't get them shut. And so all of that would fall, within that line item. So you can see in yellow are things that he did. And then if you see something that's been crossed off, those are things that since we've started this process, we've been able to complete already. And so at Garfield, there was an old chimney that had gotten struck by lightning.
Lightning hit it.
And it was pretty, it was in disrepair, needed to be removed. It was leaking inside, down the wall. And so all of that has been repaired. And it didn't cost $442,000. That was to redo the entire roof and the chimney. That's not what it cost us. And we were able to do that locally with a local contractor. So anything that you go through and see that's got a line through it, that means we knew these were issues and we've addressed them, and we'll continue to do those things in yellow as we can.
Well, my math on this was there's about $2 million in this packet here. And then you've got
That's correct.
just over $1 million on the front page. And so what is the recommendation? What are we wanting to do here?
So, well, I feel like the group felt like there were 4 main items: the middle school roof, the high school auto and print shop roof, an intercom system, and then windows.
So if we take an action on this tonight, can the roofs be done this summer?
We would have to first get all the specs, and then we would have to get all the bids, and then we'd have to get on the list. The hope would be yes.
Okay.
But
The tuck pointing is not on this front page.
Yeah, I was starting to ask about,
I didn't,
Maybe we need to address that.
because that was what was that,
that was
300?
that was only 160,000
160,000.
for the whole, I think. I wonder, I missed that. We didn't catch it till just now.
Well, there was some reason why, I can't think what was there a reason.
So you want to explain to him what the tuck pointing is?
Well, the tuck pointing is just, basically, it's the mortar between the brick, especially at Garfield, is coming out on the north side. The middle school is completely redone, correct?
Yes,
Linda?
it was-
Yes, when it was completely redone.
2,000.
Some parts of, David, help me remember, Guthridge, but not bad.
Most every building had some area that needed to be.
Some cracking, but I think
And about moisture.
Garfield was
The
the biggest concern.
for the tuck points and the
The middle
seals.
school was done during the renovation, but it still needs some repair. work.
Yes, and I know we had the people that were going to do the tuck pointing up above the Guthridge and maybe some of the Lincoln windows, the stucco was coming off. That was a
Right.
big one at Guthridge. They were going to do that also. Rather than the option is to put a piece of steel up there,
Right.
but we thought that's just hiding it.
If there's only one company, you want to speak.
Right, it's Mid-Continent out of Fort Scott. They've been around forever, and they've done all of our work here as long as I've been teaching. They're just all in the area.
I've used them as well.
Right, they're pretty rough. They come in here, they get their job done, and as far as we know, they get going.
So does the tuck pointing need to be added to this front page as well then? Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, was we gonna wait, we was gonna do the roof, the two roofs for sure need to be done, especially the high school print shop. And then we were gonna see if there were money left over to do the tuck pointing, although the tuck pointing, that guy wanted to get on the list, did we not?
Right, he wanted us to get on the list. I don't know
Because his
why that
wait
wasn't added
time,
and why we didn't catch
and
it.
see, to tuck point, they use those hammer drills, whatever, so that's gonna have to be a summer deal. But we would have enough money, including our contingency, to cover this, would we not?
Yes, we would.
As I've looked at the budget, we budgeted almost $2 million in our budget this year, $1,950,000, I believe. We spent around 35,000 so far, so we would have somewhere in a neighborhood right now of 1.9 million budgeted, still available for this year.
And see if these windows come out of that.
Windows come out, yes.
That 286,000, which I don't think they're gonna be near that much, I can imagine, but anyway, so that would be that money, so we would have plenty.
I would like to think, have us consider that we use up to $900,000. That would keep us $1 million in there with knowing we're gonna get money again next year to pop that back up. But if we would spend $900,000, we can do all of these things on the front page, plus the tuck pointing. If the windows come out and go through the Ursa money.
Well, and we could do also that,
And if I do more than that.
Paint, yeah.
If you get your bids on your roofs, hopefully they're gonna come in under that number, and that gives you more money. But to figure that we're gonna spend $900,000 on renovations this year that would go a long ways towards what we've got to do here.
It would.
I think the committee probably needs to meet again and decide what specs and whatever we wanna do and, go over what options we might have. Wouldn't you say, within a week or so?
We could do that.
Couple
You know,
weeks.
I don't know about roof specs, but there are people out there that do and that can,
And have the intercom. I know James talked to a couple people today about the intercom system.
He did talk to them about the intercom system, making an adjustment to the security system we already have and utilizing that as a possibility. There's Safe Schools money, second semester, where they offer grants and programs, and so we can apply for some of those funds in addition. However, we've got the money. There is the money in the bank to do all of these things.
But if we do it out of our money, then we can't get it for something else then.
That is correct.
James said we're not on the list for tuck pointing.
No, not yet. We need to get on the list.
Yeah. Because we were gonna wait and see what, I think with this window deal, if I remember right.
Does the tuck point have to be bid based upon the dollar figure?
It's my understanding that's the only company that does
Yeah, no,
that.
they-
And so they're on the Kansas approved bid site, is my understanding. And so when I talked to DCS, James, they'd all talked to the same people and they all said this is who had done that. We'd want to double check just to make sure that we're following all of those procedures and protocols, but that's my understanding.
But they've been here at least once, if I remember right, to go all over that.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem. I think we need to get on the list, just to know how we need to go about doing that.
Yeah. Because
Proceed.
it is a noisy, dusty,
And the same thing with our roofs.
Sandblasting.
We're gonna need someone to write some specs, get us some specs so we can then get those out to bid, accept those bids and then move forward.
okay.
The middle school roof at $500,000, that's a big upwards of, could be that's a big job. It isn't, so.
So does the action item need to be that we proceed forward with the next stages and employing the committee to proceed forward with the next stages of procuring whatever, not necessarily quotes, but specs and so forth for the roofs? And then get on the list for the tuck pointing and then what about the windows? Are we waiting on those for the funds, or can we proceed to try to get specs and information for those as well?
I think we could do it either way. We've gotten some information about the windows from Peerless.
Yes,
They
Fort
came
Scott.
over in Fort Scott. We can do some other checking with that as well.
Okay, and then the last thing is the intercom. What about the intercom?
I just wanted to say too, that I left off of this spreadsheet here, because I can't exactly estimate it yet, but every year we've moved money into capital outlay at the end. And with the grants that we've received this year, it's likely that we will have the same, or even maybe a little more than we normally transfer.
Move over
Okay.
to general fund.
All right.
So,
So what about the intercom system then? Are we going to also,
well, and
it's
with
on
the-
this list, so.
It is on the list as something that I feel like, that the group felt like was a need that is immediate.
And then when will we know about grant funds then?
And so that's typically something that comes out about in March. They're getting ready for the Safe Schools virtual conference or workshop at the end of this month, and typically it comes out after that, and it's possible that this year it won't. I don't know. It was just.
How long would it take to get this intercom system installed? Because we don't want that in the middle of the school year either,
Well,
I
and you
wouldn't
see,
think.
that's where we're gonna have to have someone else from the outside. I don't feel like it's reasonable to ask for Ben to do that. We found, with the phones, the amount of technology that is already going on, they're really thin on the number of people, so that would be something we'd have to get some specs, we'd have to get some bids. That could be something that, a management company did, because.
I did call a local contractor today, and they were gonna get back with us on how that would,
On what they
how
could
they
do
could
as
help,
well.
yes.
Okay, so what I'm hearing then is in addition to the tuck pointing, that we could move forward with proceeding with procuring these services and the steps necessary with the specs and bids and all that. And so I think that's our action item, is the board needs to give the facilities planning committee and the superintendent the authority to start proceeding with acquiring the necessary tools to get this done. So.
Do we want to add the ventilation room to the top issues as well?
I would say to me, it's the most important, but I know until we know exactly how much money there is, but it should be in there.
Yeah, it sounds to me, based upon our capital outlay and our budgetary numbers, I think we have enough room, assuming it's at that $100,000 range.
I agree, and like you said, it's a health issue, and I think we need to go ahead and get it on there.
But remember, anything we get bids on, we don't have to accept.
Right.
If we get past where we can't afford to do something, we just don't accept all the bid for that product at this time, right at this time.
Table it and go from there, yeah.
So we're going to add the ventilation room, we're going to add the tuck pointing to this top issue list, and then we're going to proceed forward with that.
About $1.2 million now.
So,
James did say, I said, can they come this summer on the tuck pointing, and he said most likely.
okay, all right. Okay, I need a motion to proceed forward with that, and we'll appreciate facilities planning and all their work on this. I think we need to get this rolling.
I so move.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to proceed with the procurement of those specs and so forth to get those things going as stated. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, passes 7-0. Move on to 10.5. Action on Acacia limited fan policy.
Okay, and this is kind of tricky because Keisha has a meeting tomorrow to adjust their fan policy. And so I think Mr. Castle can probably address.
Okay, as of right now, through January the 28th, each school is allowed 2 parents per participant per family to attend games. On the 29th, at this point in time, on the 29th, that goes away, and each school and county has the authority to regulate however they feel they can do that, whether it's let everybody in, go to 50%, 2 or 3 people per student, whatever, up to counties. The board will vote tomorrow on a proposal to allow 4 people per student, per family to attend. And have taken the parent out of that, so it could be a boyfriend, a girlfriend, a grandfather, a grandmother, or parents, up to 4 per participant. Whether that will pass or not, anybody's guess. That's the proposal. So I see it as we have 2 or 3 options. We can follow whatever, we can adopt to follow whatever the Activity Association says, or we can say we're going to stay with what it is now, or we can do something else. We cannot go more lenient than the Activity Association, but we can go more strict.
Okay, who's gonna monitor? My only problem is I feel sorry for the principals. So who's gonna monitor these 4? Is it gonna be a ticket system, you assume?
I think that's what most will do, is a ticket, or
Okay.
the principal or someone will provide the school with a list of names.
That's what we.
That's the places I've been, that's what's happened, is a list of names that you tell them, this is who I am, and it just gets marked off and they go in.
And that's what we've done here, is the visiting team has turned in their names, so when they've come through to buy tickets, and for people here too, we can check to make sure they're on the list, and then.
I think we
take
just
their
ought to go
name
with
in.
Keisha. I don't know.
And I think the high school would feel comfortable going with Keisha unless Keisha decides that it isn't 4 and that it's just open to whoever, however many. We don't feel comfortable. They didn't feel comfortable with that. They're shooting for 50%, below 50% capacity.
Does that include visiting teams?
Yes. Yes.
So could we say a maximum of 25% or whichever
If you
lower?
just said,
or
it
do-
could be the student athlete has 4 tickets, so every student or participant, because the band, the dancers, all, each student participant could have 4 tickets. You could do it that way. The guys at the high school, when we visited earlier, they talked about having those 2 tickets that they are given now, that could be for anyone in the family that they wanted, and then possibly they'd like to see some of the home students be able to attend those games and watch as well, but that's, they didn't want anything more than 50%, so.
So then how do you pick the kids then?
I don't know. They'd start with seniors, they could do a lottery, there's a variety of ways.
But it's just yes.
However,
Can we wait and see what they do tomorrow and just do a voice vote, or do we have to act on it? Jeff, do we have to act on it? Can we just do a voice vote over the mail? or-
We could do kind of a contingency vote. I mean, we could say, we can act on however we want to act, and we could call a special meeting, and as long as 4 of us show up, we can vote on it then. I mean, we can do a lot of things.
But if we said, if the board said, if Keisha votes for 4 or more, we're in agreement with, for 4 or less, we're in agreement with that.
Alternatively, if Keisha opens it wide up, we could say,
2 or 3.
the 2, so it's whatever the board wants to do. I think we're capable of doing it. I think we're not going to be more lenient than what Keisha says. We'll be more strict, if anything, and so I think that we can do whatever we want.
How many participants do you envision times 4? That'll give us less than 25% capacity, true?
It depends on the gyms too. I wish the guys were here to tell us. We've been there when they've had boys and girls activities, and with the 2 tickets, it doesn't feel like there's plenty of space. There's plenty of space. I think with 4, there would be adequate space, that we would be okay. I wouldn't feel comfortable just saying, come one, come all.
Just say the
And the
4.
doors are open, so. I do know at the high school, they would like to see maybe 2 or 3 tickets per participant, and then the opportunity for our kids before postseason play, before playoffs, to have some opportunity to attend and to watch. However, at this point,
And
that's not.
postseason is going to be, in most places, 50% of capacity, and that's going to be divided equally among the 2 teams participating.
Right, so everybody gets 25.
Equally.
What percent was that?
In postseason, it will be
50%.
50% capacity, and that will be divided equally among the two schools competing. And if there's two games in the gym, after the first game, the gym will be cleared, and a second group will come in.
So that'll require a different kind of ticketing system, so we make sure.
That will be through the Activity Association ticketing process. That's postseason.
So masking but no social distancing, is that what I?
No, we're still wanting both.
And when we only have 2 per student participant, I feel like we've been able to do that pretty easily. There's been plenty of room in the big gym, for sure. And probably with 3, maybe 4, there would still be room, because family groups are able to sit together. And so that helps some.
Well, I don't disagree with the spirit of the students, but I question the
Right.
process.
Right, and that may not be something to entertain, but it was just,
For now, at least,
now.
just do the 4 and see how it goes.
and we are very fortunate that we have really good quality live streaming
Yeah.
from,
That
and
makes
so
a
you
huge
can see the freshman game, the JV game, all of those things. A lot of places don't have that, so we are fortunate that we do have that.
So we could, if the board felt like the 4 was a reasonable number with no restrictions on who the 4 are, and Keisha passed that, then we're done.
Wait a minute, but the 4 but it would be for a participant.
4
Well-
people per participant,
Student,
yes.
I mean, per
But if-
athlete.
But if, like, there's, so if we have if we have a brother and a sister, they would have 4, or would they have 8?
Right now,
They
the
would have
interpretation has been that you would have, for that family, you would have 2 tickets.
Right,
And if you had triplets playing, you got 2 tickets.
right.
That's the interpretation right now. I would assume that will be the same
Right.
interpretation, that it's
Per family
Per
unit.
family.
The reason why I said interpretation, correct me if I'm wrong, Mike, because it's parents. And so
Right.
if you got triplets and you got 2 parents, I mean, I don't know that you're gonna maybe have 6 parents, but I mean, I don't know. You'll figure that out, I
But
guess, tomorrow.
the new recommendation does not say parents.
Yeah.
It just says.
So they could give them to their friends. Could they give them to their friends?
Yes,
So then there could be kids in the gym.
yes.
But what if their parents wanted to go? See, that's the thing.
Well, they'd have to make sure their mom and dad got on the list first.
I could
That's
see
between
that.
the parents and their kids.
Exactly.
Right,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, so,
Well, I guess let them fight it out.
yeah. You know, I personally think, I mean, to me, it was really important that the parents could be there. If we can get 2 more from a family, you know,
Well, or even grandparents, aunts,
right,
uncles.
I think
Yeah.
that would be the way to go. I know the kids want to be there, but, and, you know, and this possibly they could get two kids there for each student too, so.
Well, I guess if they want to run it and do it, and the administration's going to do this, right? I guess.
We've been, yes.
We
we've been
we
doing
don't
it.
have the regional, do we? Do we know if we have the regional tournament
That's all based on your record,
on the, okay.
which will come out later. We could, if we continue to do well, we could host in the sub-state area, and we could host the first round of state. Because the first round of state will be held at
The highest
one of the 2 teams, the 4 teams, the 8 teams will divide into 4 groups, and they'll be at the site of the higher seeded team. So you could host a state tournament game on Monday or Tuesday, and then the state tournament would happen that Thursday, Friday, Saturday. At another site, at the state primary site.
Okay, well, what's the board's pleasure?
I say 4. If that's what they chose to, if that's what they chose to do.
So is it going to be a motion to adopt Keisha's policy, assuming it is 4 individuals per
I guess.
participant?
I don't know how else to do it.
I would make a recommendation, make a motion, that
Okay.
we adopt the KSHSAA restrictions from January 29th through the end of the regular season, as long as it does not allow more than four tickets per participant. So that way, if KSHA comes back and says it's still going to be two, then we follow their policy. If they say
Okay.
it's wide open, we're going to stay at four.
Okay, I like that. I don't have a problem with that.
Second?
Okay, so do you have that motion down?
Say it one more time.
I don't know whether I can or not. I make the motion that we adopt the KSHSAA guidelines beginning January 29th through the end of the regular season to allow no more than four people per participant's family.
Participant's family.
Participant's family.
So if they have twins, they're only gonna still get four, right?
Yes.
Okay, do we need to put family in there, or, I mean, if they, yeah, I guess cousins, or, yeah. I mean, I didn't know if they wanted to give them an option of having friends come.
Or we could say, I'm fine with just per participant,
Yeah, maybe.
So, and if we do 4 per participant, then we're gonna have to,
then we're gonna have more.
we're gonna have considerably more. Because we've done 2 per family unit
Right.
up to this point. So. But then
What do you
there's a
think,
lot
Olivia?
of times they don't all come.
So if we had to ask anyone to leave
I like
because they
the per
refuse to wear a
participant. I
mask,
don't think if your sister
We've
and
not.
brother,
We've had to ask a couple people.
I think you should get 4. Sister should get 4 and brother should get 4.
How many,
How many-
do we
you
have
don't
any
have any
participants? We don't have
Complete
many.
that about the girls and the boys.
How many participants, we we do the band,
Well, I mean, we don't have any
Oh.
brothers, sisters playing, do we?
We don't have any twins. We don't have any of that. So I think it's per participant.
and I don't know how many we have that might be in band and then play ball, or might dance and then cheer and that, but.
Are you saying removing the family
Family.
restriction?
Yeah, the family thing.
Yeah, so that, our participation, our
Just-
numbers
If you
per,
participate, you should get 4.
Right,
Yeah,
yeah,
then
just
if
leave family
yeah.
out.
yeah, then our numbers are gonna be substantially more than what they are now, because now the kids will be giving it to the
Oh.
fellow students, and now we're gonna have a student section.
That is possible.
That's, more than likely what's gonna happen, is we're gonna have a student section now.
Yeah, grandpa's not gonna get to come there.
Right.
And that's a family, that's something we have to deal with at home.
Okay, so everybody clear on the motion and the second then?
But more per participant, not per participant family.
Per participant.
Per participant.
I mean, the way Mike worded the motion, it was the Keisha
And
recommendation, and so I don't know exactly what Keisha will say. And so if we need a clarification on this, we'll have to call a special meeting to clarify it. It's that simple. So just everybody be aware.
We'll know by 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon.
Yeah, so I don't have a problem going forward with the vote. It's just if we need clarification or modification, we'll have to call a special meeting. So. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, we've got a motion on the floor with a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? I'm opposed. Motion carries 6-1. 10-6, discussion on superintendent evaluation form and alternate forms or processes. Looks like Mr. Martino wanted to discuss this. What would you like to discuss, Mr. Martino?
well, from the Kansas Association of School Boards, got some information, and a lot of the presidents and vice presidents have thought that this was a good idea coming basically out of Pittsburgh. Ed McKechnie suggested that the paper forms that most schools use, and these are his words, are basically worthless. So what they do in 250, USD 250, is they call the superintendent in, and then they ask them, what are your 3 goals for this year? What are your 3 goals for next year? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? So it's basically a conversation, non-confrontational, but gives the superintendent an opportunity to explain some things that maybe board members don't understand when they're doing written forms. When it comes to budget or being a public presence or any other issues involving what the superintendent's duties are. And Sue Givens is writing up a kind of a guideline because there's nothing written in stone on how this should be done, other than the generalities that they gave us on the Zoom meeting. So I thought it was a really good idea, and so did a lot of the other school board presidents and vice presidents. And the school board president and vice president in Pittsburgh go in ahead of time before the rest of the board members to kind of get some information from the superintendent to kind of see where she or he is in regard to what their job functioning has been. And then the full board would, of course, it would be an executive session, obviously.
So just, I want to make sure I understand. So if I am a board member and I am evaluating a superintendent, how do I evaluate that superintendent specifically? What is the process I follow as a board member?
Can I hop in, Lou? Would you be okay if I hop in?
I can't hear you.
Can I hop in?
Yeah.
I talked to Ed on the phone late last week, and my impression was a little bit different than what Lou has, but it's the same process. He said that the superintendent would provide ahead of time the goals, this year's goals, next year's goals. So when we first meet then as a board, just the board, we look at those goals and discuss them. And then we bring a superintendent in and discuss with the superintendent those goals and how he or she feels they're going, where they're at. And then the superintendent leaves again, and as a board talks about what we just heard. And a document is written up, and then a day or two later, the president and the vice president of the board meet with the superintendent and go over that process, that evaluation. Now, one thing that Ed did say was, he said, we have in our district an unwritten rule that if you don't bitch today, you don't bitch in 6 months about the same thing. And they talked to the superintendent about, he called them reports, which to me was the evaluation of those that the superintendent would be evaluating. What do you know about this? What can you tell us about this person here? Are there any issues with this person? Have you addressed those issues? And right on down the line for all of the principals that the superintendent would be evaluating. And so it's a discussion, and what the superintendent tells us and what we see is all taken care of in a closed meeting, and it's based upon basically on what in our case, what Lori's goals were for this year and what she perceives her goals to be for next year and where we're at in those goals.
Now, do we as a board also, so let's say she brings us 3 goals and we as a board have 2 goals for her. Are those communicated to her and part of the process under your understanding? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And those will become part of her goals for the future.
So when would this hypothetically start then? When's the first step on this new evaluation plan?
It still has to fall within the guidelines of the evaluation law.
Yeah.
So for Lori, next year, you have to have 1, right?
Yes, because I'll be in year 4.
And so that would be before February,
Probably
whatever,
15th.
somewhere in February.
Right around the middle there.
But the goals for next year would need to be developed and communicated way before February.
We would want those goals at our evaluation this spring. What are your goals for next year?
Right.
Okay.
Give it to us next spring.
Okay.
Well, once you get that process rolling, you'll always have that in place. But the first year, you'd have to get those in this year. Your goals for next year are this. So when we meet then in February, where are you at on these goals? And what are your goals moving forward for 21, 22, 22, 23?
So it would appear to me that this document that is drafted by someone on the board after this evaluation meeting with the superintendent is very critical, because that's the only, other than the goals, memorializing the goals, that is the only written feedback that the superintendent gets under this proposal.
Right.
Unless I'm incorrect and don't understand.
Right.
Well, part of the evaluation is the discussion. So she can explain, well, this is what I really meant when I was talking about finances on the buildings, and you misunderstood me. So it gives a chance to clarify. And you're right, Ed said basically they just jot down some of the statements that were made within the meeting.
Okay,
Because you don't want a secretary in there when you're doing an evaluation.
okay. Okay. Well, I just want to make sure I'm clear because
Would it be more like constructive questions or?
Yes.
You
It's a
know,
conversation.
Maybe not just, why did this happen or,
And with the McCrell document that we use for administrators, the document itself is lengthy, and I'm not sure how, but the conversations that we have prior to it being completed, that's what makes that a powerful thing, because we do that. They do a self-evaluation, then we talk about what their goals are, we come back and we check on them, and then we have the written McCrell document itself. So the power is in the conversations, in my opinion.
we vacated the McCrell superintendent evaluation
It was very lengthy.
many years ago because the board didn't understand it and the board didn't want to use it.
Right.
Then the one that we use now, I was actually the scrivener of, and you look at that and you say, well, I'm not really happy with this. If you looked at the McCrell superintendent evaluation, you would say, I don't know what's going on with any of these aspects. And so I don't care what direction we want to head. I do think, though, for the benefit of the superintendent needs some assurance in writing of some sort that the board perceives he or she's meeting some goals or not meeting some goals. I would at least want that if I was an employee, something other than just a conversation. And so I think it's critical, that document,
right?
There
Did it
there
be
is
Those
done?
notes.
There is
Yeah.
documentation
Okay,
within
all right.
that meeting.
Okay, all right.
You're right.
Okay, all right.
You have to have
Right,
Yeah.
by law.
it by law.
By law, you have to have written documents.
So you're right.
Okay, all right. Any further discussion on that aspect? So,
I just got a question. Mike, as a past superintendent, do you see that? To me, it kind of seems like it's more meaningful and authentic.
Oh, yeah.
I would think so, yeah. I have to say, in the small schools I was in, I was hardly ever evaluated, except I got a contract for next year.
okay. So I think that we've discussed this sufficiently this time around, and we'll discuss it further going forward, and then we'll develop a plan based upon maybe have a meeting with some others that are experts in this process and learn more from that. Mr. Martino and I can do that, so. Okay, moving on to item 10.7, executive session. So what type of time would you need personally?
The addendum items,
Ooh, I apologize, yep, we have 10.6A addendum, I apologize, and 10.6B, so we need,
So
10.6A, action on adding professional development dates to the calendar.
And so KSDE, the Kansas State Board of Education, KSB, are allowing school districts to alter the use to meet the statutory school term by using some student contact time as professional development time. They've allowed up to 20 hours, did require that we filled out a request for that, a waiver. Those dates could be used between December 1st and April the 30th. We used one of those dates today. That was determined by the board last month. What I'm requesting is that, as we go down to the bottom here, that February the 10th, we'd mark that as an early release day. We would just continue to go all day that day. We wouldn't get out an hour and a half early. And instead, we would change February the 16th, which is the Tuesday after President's Day, to a day of professional development, and then April the 26th to another full day of professional development. I think especially in April, we can begin to really look at plans for summer and those interventions. And then in February, we can reflect to see how well the first few weeks have gone and adjustments that we need to make. So I would request that we change the calendar. And so there would be no students on February 16th and April the 26th. And instead, we would use that time for collaboration and professional development.
How many hours are each of those?
Each of those are we have 6 hours and 50 minutes of student contact time
It's 50.
a day. So it would be 7 hours. So we would be under the 20 hour with those. So,
You're right there.
yes. Mhm.
Any further discussion before we have a motion on this? Okay, we need a motion.
I move that we make, change the calendar to meet those dates and times.
Second?
Okay, Joanne, first, Mike, second, to change February 16th and the 22nd, or 26th, April 26th to full days of professional development, and then make February 10th a regular full day of school. Any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Action on PRC soccer fields, item 10.6B.
Okay, so not this week, last week, we met with Gary Crispin from PRC and Pat LaForge. They came and met with us regarding breaking ground on that facility. So Pat is ready once it gets dry to do that. David was at that meeting, and Linda, do you want to? I mean, there's still some details to work out, but Pat is here, available, and willing, so.
So they've got the detail and I didn't go to it. So has he got the master plan as to wanting these fences or where he wants that, or is it just dirt work only now?
Dirt work only at
Dirt
this
work.
point.
Okay, now how about the city coming in? Because they're gonna have to do their stuff.
City was on that call, so they're aware of everything that was discussed, and water lines and electricity.
They've got to put all that in, okay.
And they were comfortable with all of that. And after the meeting, James went with the water guy, with the.
Nate.
The irrigation person, and they talked through that. But the city did also participate in that meeting via Zoom, so.
And Pat went through the whole,
Survey.
the survey and looked at it and.
Right.
Okay, we need to take action on that. Grant permission to break ground.
So moved.
I second it.
Okay, moved and seconded. David and then Olivia to agree to break ground on the soccer field. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anybody opposed? Motion carries 7-0.
Now we're ready for executive
Now we're
session.
ready for 10.7, so what are your
Well, I have two things.
Okay.
And then if we wanted to visit about the assistant superintendent
We
search,
can-
I'd say no more than 10, 15 minutes.
Okay, anybody have anything they would like to discuss other than what Ms. Ray has to discuss, and then also the assistant superintendent search we discussed a while ago in terms of people associated with that? Anything else? Okay, I think let's go ahead and start with 15 minutes. Entertain a motion to enter executive session for 15 minutes.
Second?
Okay, motion by Lou, second by Joanne, to go into executive session to discuss confidential employee information pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception in Tacoma and the exception for employee negotiations in Tacoma at 8:09 for 15 minutes, and the board will return to open meeting at 8:24 in this room. All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? None? Okay. We are in executive session till 8:20. Actually, it's going to be 8:24. Excuse me, 8:24, yeah. All right, well, back in open session now, we do need to extend our executive session. And so I would entertain a motion to extend executive session another 10 minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to extend the executive session another 10 minutes for the same purposes as stated previously at 8:25, back in open session at 8:35. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 7-0. Okay, we are back in open session. We'll move to item 10.8, which is action to extend contracts of the building administrators for the 21-22 school year.
All right, so Rob Barkus, High School Assistant Principal and Activities Director, Kurt Fries, Guthridge Principal, Shelley Gardner, Lincoln Principal, Tyler Gordon, Middle School Assistant Principal and Activities Director, Misty Russell, Garfield Principal, Eric Swanson, High School Principal. Our middle school principal, Rajan, already has a contract for next year. So I recommend that you extend the contracts of Rob, Kurt, Shelley, Tyler, Misty, and Eric for the following year, for the 21-22 school year.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to extend all of those building administrator contracts. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. 10.9, action on spring supplemental assignments on page 38.
I would move that you approve those. We're still looking for some, but I would move that you approve those we have listed.
I thought Tuesday we'd be looking for tennis.
I know.
We are.
Okay,
I so moved.
moved by Roger, seconded by Olivia to approve those spring supplementals. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. 10.10, action on personnel.
Okay, we have two resignations from employment. Jeanette Danker, bus monitor, effective January the 22nd, 2021, and Katie Queen, bus monitor, effective January the 15th, 2021. I recommend you approve both of those resignations.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve those resignations. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, 7-0 pass.
All right, there's one recommendation for employment. It's Valerie Morrison as a bus monitor, effective January the 25th, 2021. I recommend you approve Valerie for employment.
So moved.
Moved by Joanne, seconded by Olivia to approve that employment of the bus monitor. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0. Seeing no further items on the agenda, we are adjourned.
Thank you very much.